So as promised, today we shall be talking about the transfer window. We shall be talking about the game that took place, African, the CAF Champions
Champions
League
League
finals.
finals. Yeah.
Yes, we'll start with that. I know you talked about Fiston Maele, and he actually delivered. So that's interesting, as predicted. So let's go. I mean, what you got to say? Where do we start? Do we start with the Champions League finals? I presume.
Indeed, indeed. It was a very close game. I think because it was the second leg. The first leg was in South Africa that ended 1-1. So the second leg was very crucial. It was a very closely tight game, which Pyramids eventually won by 2-1 with some little controversy. Thankfully, Pyramids won because I think there would have been big questions about the goal scored by Mamelodi Sundowns. And as expected, Fiston Maele had a say on the outcome of the finals. I'm not sure if you've had time to watch the highlights. I watched the game live. I enjoyed it. It was a good
Yes,
game.
yes. I actually watched the highlights, and where you're talking about the controversy, the ball that came in, the player that went to challenge with the defender was actually outside. I'm talking about the
Yeah,
Mamelodi Sundowns
yeah,
player. He
he
was
was
out.
offside.
Exactly. So when the ball came back in and they scored, it should have been called offside because of
Yes,
interference.
I was
And
surprised that VAR had a close look at it and still felt that he was onside. I just said, you guys better be lucky that this game doesn't go to to prolongations because I'm telling you that's offside.
exactly. And when you saw the game, because I watched, I think the second half of the game, I saw the total possession and the first half. I'm sorry, as a rewatch,
Mm.
Mamelodi Sundown actually was looking to control the game. They controlled the game, but what was interesting about Pyramids is that they actually sat back and
That's
attacked Mamelodi Sundowns on counterattacks.
that's how Pyramid plays. It doesn't matter who they play against. That's their game. Pyramids doesn't come at you, but they usually win. They usually win. They always playing counter-attacking football. With Maele as their outlet. Um, they never come back. They never come at you. When it's necessary, they can do that. You know, but in general, they are a team that sit deep and counter-attack. Yeah, so you're right. They let Mamelodi play, and Mamelodi had some good chances. If
Yeah.
you took all the chances together, that game was a draw game. They had
Yes,
some
they were not.
very good chances in the first half, including a 1-on-1. With
Yeah.
about 5 minutes of the first half left to play, and they didn't take their chances. So, unfortunately for them, that
Yes,
was the
because
story of the day.
yeah, when you look at the overall stats, right, it was total shots on target for Sundowns was 9, while Pyramids had 10
Mhm.
shots. Oh, total shots was 9 for Sundowns and 10 for Pyramids. Shots on target, Sundowns had 2 and Pyramids 3. Ball possession was in favor of Sundowns, 59% as opposed to Pyramids, 41%. We just talked about that,
Mhm.
corner kick, 3 each. Then offside, Sundowns was actually 1 time offside and Pyramid 4 times. So as you said, the game was actually close, and it was played on home and away, you know, and so Pyramids carried the day with 3-2.
Yeah, yeah,
When you look at the financial, rewards, and given that it's in Africa, the winners went away with 4 million US dollars, while the losers, Sundowns, went away with 2 million US dollars. And these teams are teams that will be going also to the FIFA World Club
not pyramid,
Champion.
not this year. Without
Okay.
Casablanca, Al Ali, Esperance de Tunis, and Mamelodi Sundowns.
Okay. And I want you to actually, hope you can see what I just pasted. I want you to actually just explain to us, how these would actually benefit those African teams going,
It
because
it it will significantly, especially I think the team that would benefit the most from the financial gains of participating at the the FIFA Club World Cup competition will be with that of Casablanca, because with that has fallen back in the Botola Pro League in Morocco. I think the financial gains from this would greatly boost they would use that to boost their squad eventually. I think it will help them a lot, because they are falling back. With that, is nowhere near the top three in the Moroccan league. So I think they're going to struggle at this tournament. I don't know how they're going to cope. So they will benefit a lot from it. I think that Al Ali is already an African giant. It's just going to help them, you know, get even better, and consolidate their position. Um, as for Mamelodi Sundowns, I'm not sure what change this would bring. It will just increase to their coffers, but I'm not sure unless they want to. But Mamelodi Sundowns, if you look at their squad, they sign players from Latin America. So I wouldn't be surprised if they start going down the road of Egyptian teams and getting players from Europe on loan to come and play on the continent. That would be good. That would be good experience for some young players in Europe to go and play in Africa.
yes, because financially, you see the purse, right? It's 9.5 million US dollars. That's
That's a lot of
huge.
that's a lot of money. You just talked about the price money for the CAF Champions League being $4 million, and now we're talking about just the participation fee for the FIFA Club World Cup competition is $9.5 million just for presenting yourself. You get that amount of money, you know. So it's an extra boost for the teams playing in the African Champions League to want to win that competition. And I don't think you have to win the competition to be part of it. From next year, I think the teams that go up to the semi-finals or win the African Super League would qualify for this tournament. You know, um, so it's going to help a
So,
lot of teams
okay,
in the future.
okay. Thanks for saying that. When you look at the participation pillar, right, it's about 524 million US dollars. For those who are just looking at this and say, why is it that European teams, okay, will benefit the most? When you look at the bracket, right, European teams will benefit about from 12.8 to 38 million US dollars, while South Americans would around 15.2 million US dollars. North Central and the Caribbeans around 9.5 million dollars, just as like Asia, Africa, and then the Oceania is getting 3.58. Could you put some context so that our viewers actually understand what's going on here?
Exactly. These clubs are ranked differently. They have different ranking coefficients. If you look at some of the teams that are coming from Europe, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Real Madrid, these teams have got different commercial powers. So they come with a lot of financial support from sponsors. So they get the larger share of the participation pillar money, as opposed to teams from Africa and Oceania. So you would see that, I am sure, despite the commercial benefits that come from the teams from North and Central America, but football is not really steeped in that area as it is in Europe. So they're getting the same amount of money as the teams from Africa. So it is the commercial aspect and the ranking aspect to it that makes that the European teams are going to earn more money than the teams from the other continents.
Thank you for that. And then we also see that these teams might earn more money when the competition actually starts. As far as you know, those who win games might earn. 2 million US dollars. I mean, in the group stages, and as far as you go, you actually make more money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think as soon as you get to the second round quarterfinals, I think it goes up to $13 million or something of that sort. You start earning more money as you're going through the stages of the competition as you go further, and every game you win or every stage you go beyond, you get more money. You get more money, and this is what leads to the winner being able to take home as much as $125 million, because every qualifying stage means you earn more money, including the finals, for which you would get $40 million for winning that game. And when you put all that together, the team that wins the competition would get a total of $125 million. I hope that at least an African team gets to the quarters. And why not the semis? I think there's a real chance here for Al-Ahly and Mamelodi Sundowns to make the quarterfinals. And why not the semifinals? They can spring surprises. I would love to see how they perform against the Latin American teams. I think they stand a chance, to get to the quarterfinals.
Interesting. So let's move on. Let's talk now about some friendlies that were held this past week.
Yes.
The leagues, most leagues are actually over. So now we are having international friendlies. We had some friendlies between Central African Republic, Mauritania, Zimbabwe against Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea versus the Gambia. And most of these friendlies were actually taking place in Morocco. That's interesting. And when you look at the locations where these friendlies took place, it was not in some major or well-known stadium. I mean, what do you make of this?
Well, this is what we spoke about last week, isn't it? When people were criticizing FECAFOOT for not arranging top-tier friendlies for the Cameroonian national side. We talked about the purpose. What's the purpose of the friendly? You would see that most of these friendlies, I think 5 of them took place in Morocco. This is teams already trying to acclimatize, making their players feel what the temperatures would be like when they're going to play in Morocco, start to get a feel for the environment, And in terms of the pitches or the stadia that were used, none of these games were played in major stadia that will be used for the competition. That tells you the level of infrastructure that Morocco has. Some of the games were played in Bereshit. One of the teams of that's Bereshit that's where Youssoufa Bereshit, a team in Botola Pro League, plays. Marrakesh, where Cameroon played. Marrakesh is a second division team, so they've got infrastructure, good infrastructure, and that explains why Morocco, one of the reasons why Morocco is doing so well in terms of their football development. They've got top level infrastructure, and African teams are benefiting from that now in terms of their preparation towards the AFCON. I don't want to think that if teams had to go and prepare to play in Cameroon when Cameroon hosted the AFCON, they would have had to play on the pitches that would have been used for the competition, which were not even ready, with a few months to go to the competition. But now you're talking Morocco hosting teams to have friendlies, and none of them are even playing in any of those pitches that are already ready, but they have so many stadia, top stadia, which these teams could use to prepare, so Sub-Saharan African countries have a lot of work to do to catch up with these Maghreb countries.
Exactly. So you just mentioned Yes, you just mentioned Cameroon. Let's talk a little bit. Talk about Cameroon. Cameroon actually beat Uganda 3-0, and for those who don't know, Uganda will be one of the teams hosting the African Cup of Nations. Is at 2027. There are 3 countries hosting, right? Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda that will be hosting. So talking about these games, right? Cameroon beat Uganda 3-0.
Mm.
Talk to us a little bit about the team. I know you did watch the game. There were some players that impressed you, and there's something that might happen in the next 1 to 2 years where no names, from no names, some players actually no names, but you watch them play, and in a very short amount of time, you're going to see these players get from zero to hero. What do you make of
Possibly,
this?
possibly. I think it was a good game. I think it was a good game. I particularly was impressed with the centre forward Batum, the attacker from Cologne. He is a good player. He is a good player. I think he will be pushing Mark Brace to keep him in the national side. You know, I enjoyed the way I enjoyed the way the team played. They moved the ball absolutely brilliantly. You know, I am not sure if it was because the team is that good, because these are players who've not played together. This team has just been cobbled together. And for them to have played in that manner was impressive. The way they moved the ball around, it was an absolute joy to see. And some of the goals they scored, you know. And my main man, you know, I always talk about him, Abubakar Vincent, showing me again that he is not keeping pace with the team. Yes, he did well. He did well. Good hold up play, set up one of the goals. But he also had two good opportunities where he should have finished. You know, I think it's important that he's around his boys and kind of see the transition through. But I think the more players we see coming through, the more difficult it will be for Mark Brace to give a reason as to why he's going to keep playing Abubakar Vincent for the national team. I tell you, Batum is ready. He is ready. He is ready.
Yeah, so this is actually interesting because Cameroon plays again. When is that? Monday or Tuesday?
On the 9th, yeah, that's tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So they play again tomorrow. So it
Mm-hmm.
will be interesting to actually watch them. For those who do not actually watch the game, CRTV is actually showing those games. So if you have access to CRTV, you can actually watch these games and see what we're actually talking about. So Let's move on. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go on to transfers. Okay, it's an
Yeah.
off season. There's a lot of movement. I mean, what do you make of the Mbeumo situation with Manchester United? As of today, a second bid was actually denied by Brentford. You know, Manchester United had the first bid, they increased it to a second bid, but Brentford actually denied. I mean, what do you make of this transfer?
Well, I hope he gets what he wants. Statistics are there for a reason. You know, statistics are there to show us trends. Statistics are there to tell you what could likely happen. Statistics are there to show you that, you know, what you could achieve. You know, I am worried about Mbeumo going to Manchester United. I know we talk about things and people think, oh, it's because you don't support that club or because you do not like this other club. Look, many good players have been to Man United and it hasn't worked for them. I wish him good luck if this move does materialize. However, what is it for? Is it career development? Is it for money? The thing that I've said recently and I maintain is that Manchester United players are not keen on going to Manchester United. So Manchester United has to pay over the odds and offer some wages which are not reasonable to players to make them move to the club. Now, if this move works out for Mbeumo, absolutely fine, and I do hope that Mbeumo goes on to develop to become the player that he could be. Apart from that, I'm not sure what else to say, but I am worried. I am worried about Mbeumo. You can already see from the media focus on this transfer, the stories that are coming up, the headlines that are coming up. Is he going to be able to keep with this? You have seen it with Andre Onana. You have seen it with other players. Manchester United is a club that comes with so much pressure. Once you put on that shirt, it's football. The size of a football can become the size of a tennis ball. The pressure is too much. I hope he is able to cope with it. But given Buemo's character, you know, he's not someone who talks a lot. He's a quiet guy. He can put his head down and just do his work, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
It will be good for him financially and for his agent, definitely. But whether in football terms is a good move for him, I do not know. I'm not sure. I personally, I will not say go to Manchester United. I would say go to Newcastle United.
So I do agree with your assessment there, but as he also acknowledged, it could be a financial move, which is huge. Reportedly, he's asking for about 250,000 pounds a week, which for me, I think is good value. I've seen players like Mount get more, and they haven't done anything in recent years
Yeah,
before joining Manchester United. However, it's always like Africans when they ask for what they value, their real value. There's a lot of talk about it. So
mhm.
on the other
Exactly,
hand, yeah,
exactly.
on the other hand, I believe that the role he plays for Manchester United also, that's if he goes to Manchester United, the role that he plays for Manchester United will also be important. If he stays like the highest player, he is gonna stay closer to the goal, like he did in recent years with Brentford. You see, when Tony was at Brentford, Buemo was doing a lot of the dirty work. He didn't score as many goals. The year Tony left, and then he started playing with the other
Wisa.
with Wisa. We saw that he was staying high, although Wisa was playing like first nine, they were interchanging and all that. We saw how many goals he actually scored. So the role that he plays for Manchester United also will determine his success. Because I know he's a player who has pace and all that, but if he stays deeper, then he's not as gonna score as many goals. That's just my
Well,
opinion.
but then again, this comes down to what I keep saying about composition. When you're signing a player, who is that player going to play with? What is the difference between Ivan Tony and Rasmus Højlund? Højlund. The similar kind of players in that the pace. You look at Højlund's game. He is a striker that holds his position. He doesn't move around a lot. Almost like Ivan Tony, but obviously different kind of strikers. But there is some similarity there. And Amad Diallo has something to say about this as well. It's not as if Mbeumo is just going to go and they're going to go, you're the main man. I tell you, Amad is a tricky player. There is work to be done, you know. But it will be interesting to see how this works out, But like I said, for footballing reasons, for me, if I am Mbeumo, I'm going to Newcastle United, play Champions League football, have a manager. I know this is the manager, this is the squad. There is more stability and consistency around Newcastle United. Manchester United is still in a transition phase. You're not even sure if Amorim is going to be the manager 3 months into the season, given the things that he's been saying. And clubs haven't signed any players yet. We still in early June, so there is a lot of work to be done. And this is where for me, Newcastle is better. Is that Newcastle is a settled squad. You know that you're going there. The person you're going to be fighting to play with is Murphy. You look at Murphy. Has he got a better chance of playing? Yes. He scores more goals. He is pacier than him. He has a lot that Murphy hasn't got. And Murphy is getting on age-wise. You understand? Going to Manchester United, the squad is not settled. Nothing is settled at Manchester United. Amad Diallo only came in last season. So Amad Diallo, and on a new contract, Amad Diallo has a lot to say in terms of who is going to be playing. Yes, Mbeumo can sign the big contract, but that doesn't mean you're going to be the key man. He's going to have to fight it out with Amad Diallo. There will be games where the coach might go, I'm going with Amad. There will be games where it could be you. And as you can see with Manchester United, just because you paid 250K a week, that doesn't mean you're going to be a key or major player. They can pay you that money and let you sit on the bench. Like obviously Mason Mount has had injuries, but there are other players that earn top money at Manchester United who are not very impactful. So I do hope that things work out for him the way he wants, but I'm skeptical about this.
Okay. Well, enough said about Buemo. Let's go a little bit. We're still in the transfer window talk. So let's talk a little bit about the impact these big African teams are having in the transfer window, where most of the players, because there's a trend, there's already a trend, right? We see
Yes.
European clubs, like mostly, like, let's say France, Belgium, go for academy players, because they're getting these players like on the cheap,
Yeah. Yeah.
hundreds
Yeah.
of let's say hundreds of thousands, and
Yeah.
then 2 3 years down the line, just like Baleba, right? 2 3 years down the line, they are 10 times more expensive,
Yes. Yes.
than what these European teams actually bought them from Africa. So what do you say about that? Because when you look at, let's say, the North American leagues, they mostly groom players for their leagues. Their
Mm.
business model is for their leagues. Then
Yeah.
down the line, if there's more pressure, I mean, these players gain value, then they can move on to European teams. South African has a different business model, where they want their players to play in South Africa. So how does this affect the transfer market in your perspective? How do you say it?
Well, in terms of when it comes to the transfer market, in terms of African players, there is a pyramid. There is a transfer pyramid system in place, which some people might not see now. And this depends mainly on the level of the sub-Saharan African leagues. When you spoke there about the big leagues in Africa, Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, South Africa, you know, these leagues rarely sell players to European clubs. Take, for example, Fiston Mayele, for example. He plays in Egypt. He earns $1 million a year. What's the point of living Africa? You earn $1 million a year with the living standards in Africa. What's the point of living? By the time his career is over, his livelihood, is going to continue at a very high level. He doesn't need to play in Europe. You know, now if you look at a player, I'll give you an example. A player like Watau, for example. Watau is a player that was given to Leicester City without signing any contract. His agent said, look, play him. Let's see how it goes. And then you think about signing him. And this is because the teams, top leagues, the top league teams in Europe do not feel that most of the players that are coming from the sub-Saharan African League have the quality to go straight into their leagues and perform. Now, you'll get the odd cases. Now, and one of the other reasons is that they want to control the value chain, which is what you were saying, is that they want to buy young, cheap, develop, and then sell. Now, most of us who are fans, we're supporting teams. We're thinking that, our teams are going to win the league and this or that. They could win a cup here, a trophy there. No, some teams would never tell you why they exist. They're just there to sell players to the bigger teams. If you go to each league in Europe, you would see that there are only about 3 or 5 teams that can actually fight for the title. The board are not going to come out and tell you that our modus operandi is to buy and sell, buy, develop, and sell. But you can see it from the players that they're buying. You look, for example, at Tottenham. The players that Tottenham have signed, they are all young players. The majority of them are young players. Why do you think Tottenham buy those players? Because they're hoping that of the 5 or 6 young players that they buy, 1 or 2 might end up in one of the other bigger clubs and make them some good money. So coming back to the African players, most of the African players would sign for top tier second division teams, or they will go into the academies. And then within 2 years, they would hope to sell on these guys for humongous sums of money and making thousands and thousands of percentages of profit, on these African players. So as it stands, it's very difficult for a player to move from the Premier Soccer League in South Africa or from the Egyptian Premier League to Europe, because the prices that these leagues, these teams put on their players are different. They would ask the European teams to pay $6 million, and they're not prepared to pay that money. So they would rather go to the academies and sign players like Baleba, sign players like Mohamed Kudus, and then take them using this pyramidal system to the Scandinavian leagues or to the Eastern European leagues. And then watch them develop, move them to Holland, France, and then slowly to Germany, and then slowly, before you know it, in the Premier League, some of them make it to the Premier League, to La Liga, or to the Calcio, to the Italian league, to Serie A. So this pyramid system is what determines the move of most players from the African leagues to Europe. Now, once in Europe, the story is different. Now, what African agents and clubs are trying to do now is to be able to control that value chain. I know a few agents who are working with clubs, who sign contract with clubs, so that when these players move on, they are able to still be part of that value chain, so that it benefits the clubs that have worked so hard to develop these players in sub-Saharan Africa and in North Africa as well.
Exactly. I mean, these European clubs are controlling it, and they found a way to control it because most of them now have like football schools in Africa, or are dealing with football schools in Africa. So you see some of these players at the age of 15, 16 come up to Europe, and then 2, 3 years after that, their value actually blows out. You can say that was the case of many players, even the Yaya Tourés, the Oshimens, and Baleba. Talking about Oshimen, right? What is his situation? I know last year he would have landed in PSG last year, believe me or not, right? But Napoli had beef with PSG, and he refused to actually let Osimhen go to PSG. We saw him end up in Turkey. So what do you think about his situation right now? Because he's still one of the top strikers in the world as we speak.
I think Big Vic needs to be careful, because he needs to be careful because his career might just, be derailed with all these happenings around his management. I think we're talking a player that was worth upwards of 70 million euros, and now teams are struggling to even offer him 60 million for him. And he's played the last season in the Turkish league. The Turkish league is not exactly the same as the Italian league or the French league, or it is down the pecking order. So despite his performances in Turkey, some teams are still skeptical. They're not sure if he's the same person. I think they would assess him differently within the Turkish league, in comparison with his performances in the Europa League. Okay, you did well in the Turkish league, but how were your performances in the Europa League? That will show something else. The kind of player, the level that you are at now. So I think Victor Osimhen needs to be very careful with his career, because he's making good money, but if he's not careful, his career is not going to he's not going to develop into the player that everyone thought he would be. He is a great player. He is still one of the best strikers in world football, but he needs to be playing at the top level, or he makes a decision straight away and go to Saudi Arabia, because as it stands, Nigeria might not qualify for the World Cup. That's another major tournament miss for him. Before long, he will be hitting 30 if he's not careful, because the next World Cup will be in 2030. By then, he might not be the main man for Nigeria anymore. So he needs to be careful. His career might just go on the wayside if he's not careful. It needs to be managed carefully. I am worried for him.
Yeah, I mean, talking about his value, he has a contract until next year. That's June of 2026. And we always see that.
And you never know. Maybe he wants to run that down. You never know.
Yeah, because we always see that his release clause is actually 130 million, which is unbelievable. That no one is gonna pay that release clause, right? He's in the last year of his contract with Napoli. So
I don't think Napoli is even looking at that at the moment. I think Napoli just want him to move on. I don't think Napoli are looking at that release clause.
Yeah, but Napoli also has a lot of problems, because they are having threats from their manager. Their manager might leave if they don't give him enough money, in order to strengthen the team for next season. So it will be in the advantage to maybe sell Victor Osimhen at a knockdown price. There's a lot of teams looking for strikers, so that could work in favor of Victor Osimhen.
Yeah.
Let's move from Victor Osimhen to Boniface. Boniface is another player, Nigerian striker, that was being looked at by the Saudi leagues. So, what do you think about his situation? Where are we at that with that?
Boniface again, another case of bad player management. I think Boniface as well needs to be careful. You know, Boniface was the main striker for Bayer Leverkusen, and then we had the January saga with an approach from the Saudi Pro League, and since then he's barely played any football. You know, he became a substitute and being used sparingly for 20 minutes here, 15 minutes there. And he's not been performing even when he's been playing for Nigeria because his head has been turned, you know, because he wanted that move to Saudi Arabia, you know, but it didn't materialize. So I hope something happens with him because he's not been playing football, and that's not good for him, you know.
Yeah, talking about Nigeria, they drew 1-1 with Russia. And after that game, I think on social media, I'm not sure if it was Instagram or one of these social media platforms, Boniface had something to say because the Nigerian fans were giving him stick,
Mm,
because of his performance. He did not actually perform well. So there's something wrong. His mindset is not in the right place. He needs to get himself sorted out in
yeah,
order to continue producing goals at a high level. So I believe this transfer window will be a big one for him. I know there's a no manager coming followed by Leverkusen, so he has to sit down and talk with the striker and see what is actually best for the striker. Let's
yeah.
go ahead and talk about another player, Baleba.
Mm,
I know Baleba had a very good season
mm,
with his team, with Brighton.
yeah,
He can play that holding midfielder. He can play as a center back, as we saw. But I know you prefer Baleba to play as a box to box, a position we have not seen him play either for his team or for Cameroon national team. But you just see his profile as a player, one who likes to keep the ball a lot. He doesn't like to release that quick release and all that. So you think he's better suited for that box to box. So what do you
yes,
think about Baleba? Because when I look at the player, I think, in my opinion, if I were him, I will not leave Brighton now. I will still play for another season in Brighton because
Ab-
he needs that stability. What's your
absolutely.
yeah? What do you
Absolutely,
think about that?
absolutely, absolutely. I think he needs to stay for one more season at Brighton. But again, you know, because of his performances, I think teams are going to come for him. You know, there are talks about Liverpool. You know, I did some small research on it. There are talks about Brighton being sure they're going to lose Baleba. So I'm not sure. But in terms of his profile, you know, I think Baleba reminds me a lot about Salomon Olembe. Now, at club level is different, but I feel for the national team that Baleba would be best used as a box-to-box midfielder. Because, like you say, he is good at holding the ball. He's good at driving with the ball, breaking lines. He has a good shot on him. He is a very dynamic player. Now, he tends to lose the ball sometimes too often in the midfield because of that playing style. If he is playing as a central defensive midfielder for Cameroon, that might be a problem. And this is where it's important that Martin Ongla was brought back, you know, to play alongside him. Um, I do not think we should use him as a central defensive midfielder. I think if we are playing in a tournament, say for example like the World Cup or the AFCON against the very good sides, very mobile sides like Senegal that are very athletic, and he loses the ball, it will be very dangerous for Cameroon. It's happened a few times in the eliminatories. Obviously, we were not playing against high-profile teams or players that can cause you damage if you lose the ball in the midfield carelessly. You know, I think against the better sides, it will be difficult for Baleba to play that role with Cameroon. He can do it for Brighton. It's a different composition. It's a different formation. It's a different set of players, different set of skills. For the Cameroon national team, that's also different. And I think we should use him in a different way. Obviously, the manager it's down to the manager, but a player of his profile, I see him being a box-to-box, playing on the left side of midfield in that role that Salomon Olembe used to play. I think Baleba will be more beneficial for the Cameroonian national team in that role.
I do agree with you, although not entirely, because there will be a problem of who plays that holding midfielder position. Because when I look at Martin Hongla, he's not that he's a bad player, but he's not had enough time to play at that position and the quick releases and the passes, because he also sometimes wants to hold the ball longer, and I don't think he's that skillful to actually hold the ball longer in order to read the game, change directions, and do a quick release. So with that said, I think maybe if we have someone else that comes and play either that position, then maybe Baleba can actually move forward. But for
But
now,
I think we've got many midfielders, and we have central defenders that we can try and see if they could play in that role as well. You know, we have many midfielders. We have Neo as well. Neo can play there. We have the guy from Turkey who was called back recently. I can't remember his name now. We have Olivier Ncham. There are other players who can play in that role. We have other players that can be asked to do a job as central defensive midfielders. Martin Ongla is there for now. He can play that role. I think he's 27 or so he's not on the other side. In terms of his age. But I just think Baleba, he's got so much to offer going forward for Cameroon to waste him as a central defensive midfielder. I think he would be more beneficial for Cameroon to play in a position where we can use his offensive prowess rather than making him stay at the back. To Boyomo can play as a central defensive midfielder if we want. He is good on the ball.
yeah,
In a kind of system that we used in the 1990 World Cup, where Kunde Emmanuel moved from centre back to central defensive midfield. Being the first point. I don't think many people realize that was his position when we played in 1990.
okay.
So we can absolutely do that. We can absolutely do that. There are many players who can play as central defensive midfielders within the Cameroonian setup.
Yeah, let me ask you this: who's playing that holding midfielder position in these friendly games that we're playing? Do you
I did
remember?
not. No, I did not. I did not look at that. I did not look at that. I just watched
Okay,
the game
so
without analyzing it. But what I was looking the most is how the forward line was playing and how they moved the ball. In terms of the personnel, I didn't pay attention, but the team played brilliantly. Again, against Uganda. And I don't think Uganda fielded a very strong team either. Against Uganda, I wouldn't judge. But for the finishing and the movements that I saw from the center forward, I was happy with what I was looking at. But in terms of the personnel in the midfield, I didn't pay close attention to them because they were
okay,
new names.
okay, maybe that's an opportunity for us to look and see who can actually play that role.
Tomorrow,
And yeah,
tomorrow against Equatorial Guinea, yes, definitely.
exactly. So we were talking together during the week, and you came with something I normally call that like fantasy football, where
Yes.
we can actually review uh,
Mhm.
the starting 11 of African players playing in Europe. Okay,
Yes.
you had a pretty interesting list going, and maybe you want to throw some light
Okay.
on
Let's
that
do it.
formation.
Let's do it this way. So
Mhm.
let's do it this way. This is interesting, folks. So me and True Lion spoke and we said, look, can you draw your list of 11 African players that have played in Europe this season? And let me do mine and let's have a look and see what the differences are. Um, so if we start in goal, who did you have in goal?
Well, I will actually let you start because you are the one who came
Okay.
up with that
So I had
with
I
that
had
list.
I had Onana in goal. So my Nigerian friends, and sorry, I know you guys are not keen on Andre Onana, but I had Andre Onana in goal. You look around Europe and basically Africa is underrepresented in terms of goalkeeper. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I will say this for me, and I've continuously said this. for me, Andre Onana is the best goalkeeper that is out there, despite the poor season, which
Okay.
is
Who did you have right back then? I think that was very clear. PSG's man,
Hakimi.
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 Yes. And right centre back.
The right center back for me. Let me see. Okay, I did not come up with anyone on that right center back.
Okay. I had Dika.
He
I had
plays.
Dika.
Dika, is he still
Roma.
with
Roma.
Oh, he moved to our AS Roma.
He's been there
How
for a
long
while.
was he not with Frankfurt before?
Yeah, but he's moved to Roma for a while now. Almost his third season.
Oh, okay.
After the Europa League finals, he moved to Roma.
What finally happened to Chancel Bemba?
He's still there, isn't he? He's still there. He's still fighting with his club, isn't he?
Did he play? Did he play any games?
No, I don't know. I don't even know. He's not in the team. Anyway, left centre back for me was Tapsoba.
So I mean, why do you pick Tapsoba? Because this year with Bayer
No,
Leverkusen,
just tell me your own player. I had Tapsoba. Left centre back Tapsoba.
Okay. What do you think about the Algerian Rami Ben Biami?
I went for Tapsoba.
Okay.
I didn't look at anyone. I just went best left centre back, African, Tapsoba.
I'll go for Remy.
Remy, tell me about him then.
Rami Ben Biami is Algerian who plays for Borussia Dortmund.
Mm-hmm.
And I just believe he's we've been talking about Tapsoba for quite a while, and I just believe by default many people think Tapsoba, but for me I'll go with Rami.
Okay, Benzabaini, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, left back.
Left back. Oh, hold on.
You don't have your
hold
list.
on.
You're thinking. You didn't do your
homework. Yeah. Hold on. How come do we not put? How come I didn't put? Oh no, well, Hakimi against. Okay, now I understand. For left back, I don't have a left back. But you know what I was thinking?
So I went with what?
I was just thinking about the guy who plays for what's his name, the Nigerian who plays for. But I just remember he's a right back who plays for. Is it Forest?
Who? Aina.
Yeah. Aina has been really good.
Back.
Yeah, he's been really good this season though. But
so
against
left
Hakimi,
left back for me was Ait Nouri.
Okay.
Algerian Ait Nouri. Yeah. Central midfield.
Central midfield Baleba.
Okay. So I went for Baleba and Pap Gay.
Oh, you were playing with two central midfielders?
Yes. Baleba, Pap Gay.
Okay.
Two left-footed midfielders.
Okay.
Sorry, Zambo Anguissa. No place for you.
Well, that's what Zambo Anguissa is in my midfield anyway.
Who?
Zambo Anguissa is in my midfield.
Okay, no, I had Baleba.
As a box-to-box.
I had Baleba and Pap Gay. Pap Gay, the sitting midfielder, and Baleba, the box-to-box one. And then
I have Papsa.
Okay.
And Papsa, Zambo Anguissa, and Baleba.
Okay. I have Baleba, Pap Gay, and Mamouche.
Okay.
Mamouche just in front of them. I had two people to choose from, Mamouche or Mohamed Kudus.
Okay. Yeah, Kudus didn't have a good season this year. He needs to quit West Ham, I guess. So
yes.
Discipline issues anyway. I won't blame it on West Ham. For me, it was discipline issues. He was not disciplined enough in so many games. He allowed the best frustration to actually get to him. And he was suspended for quite a while, right? 4 games.
Yeah, he had an issue.
Yeah,
anyway,
he had an issue.
Attack line.
Oh, attack line, of course. That's where Mamouche comes in for me, playing to the left, Mo Salah to the right, and then Osimhen as my striker.
Okay, so I had Salah to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Osimhen center forward, but I tell you, this one was close for center forward. I was going to put Nicholas Jackson because I don't think the Turkish league is. This is just on reputation that
Yeah,
Osimhen
it's yeah.
delivers. But I was going to put Nicholas Jackson. But then on the left side of my attack is Ademola Lookman.
Okay.
So I had
Fair,
Lookman, Osimhen, and Salah.
fair enough.
Then,
Fair enough. So the difference between us when it comes to the midfield is that you decided not to play Zambo Anguissa, a guy that has won the Calcio twice, a guy that for me is underrated, and you decided to go with Pap Gay.
I went with Pap Gay for Villarreal as my midfielder. Yes, I went with
Okay.
Pap Gay. It was a close one. I had 3 midfielders to choose from in that position. I had Pap Gay. I had Lamine Camara of Monaco, who also had a brilliant Champions League campaign with Monaco, and Anguissa. But in the end, I went for Pap Gay. Now, and this is the thing for me in terms of midfield players. I always think as a midfield player, you must have a strike on you. You must be able to come towards the box and from 25 meters, you let fly. I don't see that in Zambo Anguissa's game. Zambo Anguissa will headers, he will score you headers, he will score from tap-ins, things like that, because he moves a lot. He's a dynamic guy. He's a technically gifted player.
Did you say tap-ins? Did you see the goal where he charged from the midfield and scored? It was a tight one against was that against AS Roma?
Yes. But when he finished, what was his distance between him and the goal?
But it was the run, it was the power, it was the energy.
Absolutely. I'm saying that for me, most midfielders can do that. But when games are tight as well, I like a midfielder who can stand from 25 yards and make the goal.
How can you say most midfielders can do that? Most is not a given. Did you see the goals scored against Ivory Coast?
But the guys, I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at their performances in Europe this season.
Okay, how many goals? How many goals did Pap Gay have?
He scored some decisive goals, man. Just go and watch them.
I'm not denying, because
you
if you're talking,
you would see what I'm telling you about in the sense of a game that is a tight game, yeah. And this guy unleashes a bullet from 30 yards. Some of those little things that midfielders should have in their game. I've never seen Zambo Anguissa strike a ball as a midfielder. I have seen Baleba strike a ball once, twice, thrice. That's what I'm saying. Is that for me, Zambo is a very good player, but if you give me Pap Gay and Zambo Anguissa, I'm taking Pap Gay.
Well, Pap Gay this season scored 4 goals in the Italian league. Zambo Anguissa
La Liga. In
La Liga, I'm sorry. Yeah. Zambo Anguissa scored 6 goals with 4 assists. So
absolutely fine. I'm not looking at those stats. If we're looking at stats, most of these players will not be here. I know that like Andre Onana won't be here. You go and take a goalkeeper who's playing for like the Mauritania goalkeeper who plays in League One, I think is Angers or something, and put him here because he didn't make the mistakes that Zambo Anguissa made. That Andre Onana made. I just looked at the quality of the player. Yes, if you have to go by those stats, then yeah.
No, but it's not only stats for Zambo Anguissa. The quality of the player, he's a more creative midfielder. His influence while winning the Italian league was felt by Napoli. But absolutely. I do understand that's your opinion. You're looking at certain things. You like, as you said, you like a midfielder.
Absolutely. I have a team here. Onana, Hakimi, Tapsoba, Ndika, Nori, Baleba, Pape, Mamouche, Salah, Osimhen, Lookman. 11. Do you have your 11?
Do I have my 11?
You didn't do your homework.
Well, I'll just give you my 11. I don't have to write it down. I wanted to give it, just thinking about it.
It was a close one in terms of Zambo Anguissa. He is a very good player, but the other person I was going to put in there was Alex Iwobi.
Alex Iwobi.
Yeah, I considered Alex
if
Iwobi, but in the end,
if you put Alex Iwobi, then you just need to shift Mamouche to a left winger.
I'm not shifting Ademola Lookman for no one in Africa. I'm not shifting Ademola Lookman. Ademola Lookman is lethal. I'm not shifting Lookman, not one bit. No way.
Well, that's quite interesting.
It will be.
It's
It will
always
be a. It will be a good week, isn't it? As we come towards the FIFA Club World Cup competition and transfers really start getting hot. We will have more to talk about next week.
exactly. So, what do you say? What do you say? Our next topic will be on.
Well, we'll still be transfers. This is transfer seasons. And to our viewers and followers, keep subscribing, keep sharing. Um, Facebook, and some of our social media platforms have rules which we must abide by in terms of what we can share with you for now. But I'm sure as we come towards the end of this month, we would have more access to live discussions which you can participate on. And we will share those with you before, and we will come up with short presentations for you, which you can spend some time during the week and digest. So hopefully, as Truline was saying, the Club World Cup's coming, so we will focus a little bit on that. We will talk about transfers, and there will be developing news around the continent, which we will share with you as the week develops and unfolds.
Exactly. I think by the end of this month, we shall be able to do lives and share on Facebook. We can do lives also on our YouTube channel. So please, guys, we can only do this with you. So share, like our pages, share so that we can actually grow in the space together. It was a nice one. Always a pleasure talking football with you. Our Hope you have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day, my brother.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ciao.
Peace.